Not really. It's just things that wearing colors and things that made me happy. It's just as an artist, I think a lot of stuff you could take from painting, and I look at the closet as being this palette of colors, and you're just feeling it out, and all of a sudden this works and this is fun, and you'll be on the train 7 in the morning, going into Manhattan, and people come up to you and they're like, "Oh man, keep doing it, man. Thank you. And I remember one guy, I had these pink gaiters on, and they're mock Crocs, of course, because if you want every color, you can't, you can't buy, just buy some of these pink style gaiters. This guy says, he goes, "Man, you know what, you inspired me, man. I'm getting them this Christmas. Everybody on the block's going to see that, and they're like, he did it." And I'll be like, you know what? I saw this dude on the train. So it's just like you'd have these amazing interactions with people just by wearing these clothes and not being afraid to go out and have fun.
And letting them know they can do it too.
That's it. And that, I think, comes back to the name of your show, is people would always see me in the now, and knowing that I don't know where this guy's going, I don't know where he's coming from, but I know he's doing it. There's a fine line between a costume and an outfit, and that's why, I know people don't know any better, but people coming up to you be like, "Oh, I can't wait to see what costume I'm wearing." I'm like, I don't wear costumes.
Right. How would you define it? What's the difference between a costume?
A costume is what you put on to disguise yourself and pretend to be somebody else. A pirate costume, an inmate costume. I don't wear costumes, especially in the street. I wear outfits that are my clothes, and that's why I always tell people, everyone's like, "Oh, Baron Ambrosia this, Baron Ambrosia that." I said, Baron Ambrosia gets his clothes from Justin Furnell's closet.
Did Baron really surface in terms of the public eye on your podcast?
Yeah, it was a friend of mine who made this film I made, Cons on Pain, with one of my partners and my other partner. They both kind of approached me on separate occasions and said, "Look, you wear these kind of wild, interesting clothes, and you really go to all these places in the Bronx, these little places that you are obsessed with, these trucks and little hole-in-the-wall places. What a great show that would be." And they both said it on separate days, and I know they didn't even speak about it. Right. And the one gentleman, Dave Chcan, had just started Libsyn Media, a podcasting company. He's like, "Well, we used to be able to do radio shows, but now we do video. What do you think about making a video?" And that was when I was like, well, it was the risk of discrediting myself as a person by being myself on screen. This was the way I acted, this was the way I dressed, these are the places I went. And I didn't want to be like, "Hey, look at me, I'm this cool guy, and I'm very self-aware of what I do, and so I'm gonna have a show about me." That felt very uncomfortable for me at the beginning, because like I said, it was just my life, and it wasn't like I'm wearing this suit because I'm on camera.
You didn't want it to become used like a facade.
Exactly. So I said, well, at the same time, maybe we could have a little bit of fun if I added a character element to it. We dress the same, we look the same, we have the same goals, but someone with a bit of a narrative history. And that's where, the film making background came in. I never saw myself being on television, I always saw myself making movies and living in the film world as opposed to the television world. And they're distinctly different. And so I said, well, maybe we can involve each episode, we can go to a restaurant, but we could also have a story. And it's a fictional account about this character, Baron Ambrosia. But at the same time, we could spin in some journalism, give you the facts, make it educational so people would have the tools they needed to come to these places that I love so much. And that's how it kind of began. And the idea was to have this kind of bastardized aristocrat, that was really in the spirit of people who had influenced me, like Sir Richard Francis Burton, who's one of the great explorers of the 1800s, and just that kind of never say die, be in the middle of, the Congo, malaria, barely alive, various STDs, people are trying to, headhunters are after you, just that kind of world that I love so much and wanted to be part of, but kind of bring some of their history into it. And that's where kind of the Baron came from. And I also spent a lot of time, researching voodoo and documenting it, and I'd always loved the character known as the Baron, or Bawon. And he was the spirit of fertility in the cemetery, and also of sexuality. So he wore a top hat and a cape, and it was very, every, I think, great folkloric tradition has the trickster.
Right. So this was the trickster character.
This was the trickster character for Haitian voodoo, and he's also kind of the most powerful, but at the same time, he is a joker. The way I saw a lot of these shows, especially dealing with, different cultures and ethnicities, it was, always told from a certain perspective, kind of, well, we don't want to offend the housewives in Nebraska. We're going to have this very safe person explaining it to them and also going to explain to the people, these third world people, that it's very nice you have your business. And it all came across to me as very patronizing and really had no soul to it.
Right.
And to me
like
it was
a fetish.
yeah, very much of like presenting this, and we don't want to offend anybody. And
Right.
to me that wasn't the way I had communicated with people from all over the world, no matter what language we spoke, was through kind of being a little naughty and being a little obscene and having fun. And most people relate to that on some
Right,
level.
right.
And it's like, I'd
Some
always...
sort of wink.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I'd always said about the Baron, as opposed to these other hosts where they want to stand back and dabble in everything, Baron wants to eat all the food and screw all the women. No matter what color you are, no matter what age you
Right.
are, he wants to screw you and eat your food.
Right.
Show, but when I first started this, I'm like, well, I have the show and it's funny, but I'm going to do it about your restaurant. And I'd come in dressed in a suit with a big hat, and they're just like, you can tell they're just horrified. They're just like, what is he talking about? So then I'd start bringing DVDs, and then after the show, these people who were very hesitant to let me in are thrilled, and now they totally understand. And you can tell they've got to explain it to other people. Oh, he's a crazy guy, but
Right.
and they don't even think I'm a crazy guy. They call me a crazy guy to let other people know what they're thinking.
Right.
I know you think he's a crazy
Right,
guy.
right.
I'm going to say he's a crazy guy just to show that we're on the same level.
Right.
And then I'm going to flip it on you and be like, but the show's really great and I'm really happy to be part of it. I did 8 episodes of Underbelly, and it became the #1 food podcast on iTunes, which was really great for, we had no budget. It was just money out of my pocket, and I got my team volunteering the time. And it was just kind of like in the midst of looking for more film work, and we're finishing up my film, and we're, working on a project in Africa, doing all these little things. And I was like, geez, I think this show's good, and I believe in this show. And so I reached out to a few different networks, and Michael Maxnabi at BronxNet, and I said, this is a Bronx local thing, man.
Right.
We're doing all this stuff in the Bronx. Why
Right.
are all these cardboard people on TV, and we're not on TV? Like, we
Right.
have something original here. And it was, of course, it's kind of frustrating because you'd never want to sacrifice your credibility, your quality to be like them, just so you could make some money. Right, exactly.
Right.
But so it's. Like I said, I made a trailer of the show, The Best Moments, kind of sent it out, and like I said, met up with Mike Nobby, and we walked around Lehman campus, and I said, look, man, I want to do a show for you. He was really excited about it. He said, this is great, this is really exciting, and so we walked around Lehman campus, and I said, well, I want to do a show for you, and where Underbelly kind of focused on everywhere from Washington Heights to, Mexico, to things going on, stuff I shot in Vietnam.
And this is Lehman College campus.
Lehman College campus, and I said, Mike, I want to make a show called Bronx Flavor. And I want to make it 100% about the businesses of the Bronx, and I want to take the same approach I did with Underbelly as Baron Ambrosia, but it's going to be local. Started doing it as a 10-minute segment on a show called Open, of course, which is their, flagship morning show on Fridays. And we did just episode after episode. Every 2 weeks we do an episode, and then it got very successful. And Michael said, what do you think about filling an hour time slot? And they had a few people approach me about, doing some stuff in studio and doing some stuff on the street. I said, look, how about we do a half-hour time slot, but it's all the same product. I said, I don't want to have an hour and have half an hour of me being in the studio. You guys have a lot of great shows that are shot in the studio, but this is a field show. This is a little movie.
Experience. It's
right.
the experience.
I was approached by a lot of higher-end, kind of white tablecloth restaurants. This is white tablecloth, but different kind of thing. You know what I mean? More of, hey, we hear you have a show.
Right.
Come on in. And I'm like, well, it's more of like an archaeological research of food in the Bronx.
Right.
And you've got a great restaurant, and it's fantastic, but I can't really do a show about you because it doesn't cohes with what we're doing.
Right.
And so something that represents the ethnicity of that neighborhood. So a place that isn't there to feed tourists. It's there to feed the denizens. And the denizens of that nationality are the people who frequent that location. And these are people who could have their grandmother cook the same food, but for some reason they're here. So to me, that's the mark of quality. that yes, these people know this food, grew up on this food.
Right.
This is how they cook it. This is how they eat it.
Right.
You're not getting a watered down imitation that you might find in Times Square.
Right.